Skoda Octavia was once the least sophisticated of all the Volkswagen Group's family hatchback products. Not anymore. Almost nothing has been held back for this fourth generation version. It's still bigger and better value than most of its rivals, a Mondeo-sized medium-range hatch for the price of a Focus-sized one. The difference now, though, is that it's clever enough, once again, to change the way you think about Skoda.
On the surface, much is different with this fourth generation Octavia. It's sleeker, digitalised, equipped with various electrified engines, and in almost every way it's a touch more upmarket. Yet, under the skin lies much the same MQB platform that underpinned its predecessor, which means that all the engineering stuff that really matters is much the same. Exemplary refinement helps here too, and that's something that's particularly marked out this Skoda ever since it was mated to the VW Group's rigidly sophisticated MQB platform. After using this car, a drive in an ordinary rival mainstream Focus class family hatch can seem quite noisy, and that will be evident whichever power plant you choose. As before, only those units developing more than 150 PS entitle your Octavia to be fitted with properly sophisticated multi-link rear suspension. Otherwise, you'll have a cruder torsion beam setup. What about engines? Well, diesels are still popular with Octavia folk, and now there's a much improved 2-litre TDI Evo unit, primarily offered in 116 and 150 PS states of tune. The mainstream TSI petrol range, meanwhile, is still built around 1-litre and 1.5-litre units. The 3-cylinder 1-litre version gets 110 PS, and the 4-cylinder 1.5 is offered in the 150 PS form that we're trying here today. This manages excellent WLTP rated figures, up to 50.4 mpg on the combined cycle and up to 127 grams per kilometre in manual form. If you specify the optional DSG Auto gearbox, both those lower powered TSI engines come with Skoda's mild hybrid E-Tech package. If you want to take a further step towards electrification in this car, there's a couple of PHEV variants to consider, either the 204 PS Octavia IV, which can offer an all-electric driving range of up to 37 miles, or the sporty 245 PS VRS IV model. The VRS gets fine-tuned sports suspension, lowered by 15 mils, and can also be had with a couple of conventional non-electrified units, a 245 PS 2-litre TSI petrol and a 200 PS TDI diesel. Whichever version of this Skoda you choose, you'll find the dynamic recipe much as it's always been with the Octavia, with comfort and refinement prioritised over more engaging drive dynamics, which is exactly the way that typical buyers will want it. They'll like the way that this fourth generation model showcases a whole new generation of media and active driving assistance technology. The car's latest travel assist system, for example, that now allows level 2 partially autonomous driving at speeds of up to 130 miles an hour. And the adaptive cruise control system's now predictive, and that means that it can anticipate and adapt to road conditions before you reach them. Octavia design has always centred on simplicity, although this model line has previously been worked on by some of the industry's most noted stylists. Whereas before there was a slight feeling of the body shell being a touch oversized for its Golf-derived family hatch platform, now the car seems much better proportioned, both in this hatch form and as the alternative estate. From the side, you get a better perspective on this Mark IV model's slightly larger dimensions. This hatch version is 19mm longer than its predecessor, and the alternative estate gets a 22mm length increase. That's enough to make both variants quite a lot larger than the class norm. This hatch, for example, is a full 311mm longer than a comparably priced Ford Focus. And behind the wheel, well, there's a huge quality improvement from anything that Octavia owners have been served up before. In many ways, it's all rather grand. There are 7 trim changes on the dashboard alone, one of them featuring a stitched finish. And wherever you look, squidgy, soft touch surfaces predominate. It's all another world from what you get in, say, a Focus or an Astra. And that's even before you start spending any more cash. If you dress this cabin up a bit with leather upholstery and the optional coloured ambient lighting strips which flow across this central chromed trim panel, it'll all look very upmarket indeed, especially given that large high-tech screens now predominate across the dash. Almost all variants get the setup that features here, a 10.25-inch virtual cockpit customisable instrument binnacle screen and a big 10-inch centre dash infotainment monitor. Conventional switches have largely been replaced by capacitive touch buttons, and most models get Skoda's LoRa voice-controlled digital assistant. In short, if you were waiting for a more sophisticated kind of Octavia, here it is. Yet it's still very practical in here, with loads of space to store things and a very spacious feel. Now let's take a look in the rear, and that's a compartment that you access via these wide opening doors. Now once inside, you start to really appreciate the benefits of this Octavia's unusually long 2,686mm wheelbase. That's 67mm longer than a Volkswagen Golf. As a result, it's more spacious back here than any other family hatch segment model, at least for legs and knees anyway. Right, let's finish by heading back to the tailgate, but let's pause on the way to notice another of Skoda's trumpeted so-called Simply Clever touches, this ice scraper that's built into the fuel filler cap. Raise the rather heavy rear hatch, you might want to consider optional powered operation here, and you'll find yourself looking at one of this Octavia's major selling points. A huge aperture opens the way to an absolutely enormous 600-litre load area. Once the 60/40 rear bench is folded like this, there's quite a step up from the boot floor. Still, just look at all the space you get. 1,555 litres in this hatch, and that's a figure that would rise to 1,700 litres in the estate. How will modern era buyers cope with a version of this Skoda that's quite a lot more expensive and sophisticated? Well, it'll be interesting to see. The Czech maker knows the kinds of people it's aiming at here, and it no longer wants to serve them as a value brand. That market will be left to the Chinese. Instead, this manufacturer wants a higher quality image developed alongside higher quality products, cars like this one. And the company looks forward to an era where the purchase of something like an Octavia is viewed not as a cheaper choice, but instead as rather a clever one. That time may already have arrived.